Okay. Hello everyone, and we are live now. So DAC SKCT is back with another informative session for you all. So this one of the much needed session. Like most of the people have been facing this problem to identify which career opportunity or which technology to learn. Sometimes people get overwhelmed about what to learn and what will suit you, and some people land in a job which they don't like or which doesn't align with their passion. So this session is for all of you to help you to identify what are the different career opportunities available and what will suit you. So today we have Rahul. So Rahul is a co-founder of Vidya, so which is a company which is helping students to get employment opportunities by helping them to learn new skills. And he has 21 under 21 award by Girls to India Foundation and also Karmavid Chakra Award instituted by United Nations. So he'll be guiding us today on like different technologies available and how to choose the one which will suit us the best. So let's start the webinar, and I'm handing over to Rahul. Rahul, thanks a lot for coming in, and it's really a good thing that you are coming up to help students. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Manoj. First of all, thanks for actually inviting me for this particular talk. Means a lot. So, everyone, hi. Really glad to be here. I hope all of you are doing great. So, okay. So before we start off today's session, I just wanted to, get a few things through to you people because, so honestly, I'm not a person who's, really good with slides and all of that. So I will be using slides, but it's going to be more about the content I put forward through words because I feel more comfortable that way, and I feel I can create a better impact through words. So that's point number one. Point number two, whatever I'm discussing is more of like my story about how I've discovered things. It's probably based on some research and all of that as well, which we've done over the past couple of months and years with respect to thousands of students out there. So I'll not be digging deep into each and every you know career path that's available. I'll probably be highlighting a few of them, mention a few necessary skills that are required, and yeah, I mean, I just help you people figure out as to what exactly you need to have, what skills you need to possess for certain domains, and more importantly, the content that I'm going to be sharing is not going to be really long. It's going to be for a couple of minutes only. But after that, I think you people, can make use of the Q&A that we'll have towards the end. So, you can ask your questions over there. I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities. And in case I can't, then I'll definitely figure out a way to get back to you people. So, yeah, I think we can get started. We can get started, right, Manoj? I can share the screen.
You can share your slides.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, let me add.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, cool. So, yeah, so as you all know, the topic for today's talk is exploring career opportunities, and we'll be looking at it one field at a time. So what exactly does exploring career opportunities mean, right? In today's world, we have so many different career opportunities available, right? You can probably get into marketing, you can probably get into data science, you can probably get into software engineering, you can get into content writing. You have so many things out there, right? And it's a vast sea of opportunities available. But then most of us, we focus on just probably the software development aspect or the data science aspect, right? Because they are trending. You have like a great stipend that you get, I mean, a great salary that's attached to it, and it's just the fame that you get with it, right? I mean, it's probably the buzz, the hype. But today we'll obviously be covering those domains as well, what's required to get into those domains. But apart from that, we'll also be looking at a few other career opportunities that you can possibly explore. More importantly, we'll be seeing how and what the problems people face are with respect to exploring or deciding which field they should be getting into, and how you can overcome that particular problem. Okay, so before we start off, I just like to introduce myself in a nutshell. Manoj has already introduced me, but I think I'll just uh, introduce myself a bit. So I'm actually a recent graduate. I just wrote my final semester exams about a month or two back. So I'm unofficially a graduate. I still haven't received my graduation certificate, but yeah, I'm going to pass in all the subjects. So that's pretty much there. Apart from that, I call myself a full stack data scientist. So I've been involved in the field of data science for the past 1.5 years now, pretty much since I started coding, to be honest. So yeah, I've been in the field of data science for quite some time now. I've worked with a couple of companies as an intern, as a freelance data scientist, and all of that. I've also started. I'm also currently working on Vidya, which is my startup that I founded with my roommate in college. And prior to that, I also had a startup called Free Flow, which I ran for about 1 year, and we shut it down. Besides, I'm also a Karmaveer Chakra awardee and a 21 under 21 entrepreneur, as Manoj has already mentioned. So this is basically about me. So I'm more of a tech guy who loves who loves the non-technical aspects as well. So I like to get my hands dirty with a lot of things, from building a product to analyzing a particular product through a data-driven approach, marketing a particular product, and things like that. So that's basically who I am. So yeah, now I think we can move forward with what exactly, I mean, with the particular topic for today. So we've interacted with over thousand students over the past 2 years, and it's been like 1.5 2 years since we started Vidya. And ever since then, we've been focusing on interacting with students, because Vidya is primarily a product for the students. Uh,
Oh,
so
1 minute. Sorry to interrupt. Can you have it in full screen?
I'm sorry, Manoj.
Can you have it in like the full screen
Oh yeah, sure,
presentation?
sure. My
Yeah,
bad. Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Um, So yeah, so as I was mentioning, we've interacted with over 1,000 students in the past 1.5 2 years, primarily because Vidya is a product for the students. So what exactly Vidya is, I'll be coming to that towards the end. But yeah, I mean, when we've interacted with students, we found two different buckets of students, as in like two different problems that students face. So one set of students usually have this question, like, how do I get started with a particular domain? Like, for example, I like data science, I like software engineering, I like marketing, but how do I get started with it? People find it really tough to, actually formulate a path for themselves, right? And moreover, they're not sure about how to just get into that particular domain. Like, for example, one really important question that people might have it is, what projects do I do in a particular domain? How can I build my profile? Or how do I get that initial experience, right? So these are problems that people generally face, and these are pretty uh, pretty difficult, I mean, pretty tough to tackle problems as well, because as a beginner we all find it tough. We might not really have the right mentors, or we might not really have the right resources. So it's always difficult to figure out how you want to get started. And most importantly, I think it's also about the interest, right? So people, they find it really difficult to figure out what their interest is. So this is like one set of students who find it who find it difficult with respect to exploring a career. The second set of students are, sorry, yeah, the second set of students are those students who explore almost every field, but they just keep exploring, and it gets really they just keep exploring forever, right? So it's more like jack of all trades with master of none. So what is the point of knowing everything if you're not really good at one particular thing, right? You need to delve deep into one particular thing. That's when you actually gain some exposure. That's when you actually make sure that you can build a career in that particular aspect, in that particular domain or field, right? So I'm not saying exploring is wrong. Exploring definitely is one of the most important things, but you need to know when to stop exploring. You need to be decisive at some point in time, right? So it's good to explore, but make sure that you're decisive at one particular time. Okay. So this is another problem. So people generally just focus so much on the exploration aspect that they forget where to stop, right? So it's always nice. It's like, your girlfriend saying, right? I want to be your only choice. I don't want to be an option. So it's pretty much the same way with respect to your careers as well. So yeah, I mean, having one final choice is really going to help you get a long way. Okay. So before we move into what particular career options or career opportunities are available out there, I just like to share my particular story. Okay. So yeah, it is story time. So when I entered college, I wasn't really, you know, a great programmer, or I had no clue. In fact, I didn't even know the C of coding. So yeah, I mean, I like just like everyone else, I think we all take time to settle down in college. We like exploring things. We just want to hang out. We want to chill with friends. That's pretty much what I did for the first 1.5 years. And suddenly, in my fourth semester, which is basically my 2-2, I figured out that I'm not going anywhere with this, right? I mean, I knew that I was interested in coding, but I never really took that initial step to actually do something out of it. So what I did was I sat down one day. I sat down and I decided that, okay, fine, I'm going to work on a project. And the project was a very trivial one. It was basically like building a love calculator. Very simple one. I mean, it wasn't like even, and it wasn't deep or anything. So what I did was I just took in two names and I randomly generated a number. And by this time, we were exposed to Python in college, but I still wasn't sure because just like most other people out there, I pretty much mugged up answers for my exams. So yeah, I mean, I really didn't learn a lot from that. But yeah, I mean, when I sat down to do this project, I had a very basic idea of Python, and yeah, I just knew that, okay, fine, this is something that I need to complete. So I started off with that basic love calculator, and I kind of completed it in about a day or two, and I tested it out with my professor in college, and he was kind of overwhelmed because he likes people exploring things as well. He likes people doing their own projects, and I think that was one of my first motivations to actually start working, because he kept stressing so much on the importance of projects, doing your personal projects apart from staying in the college curriculum. Uh, it just made sense to me, right? I mean. End of the day, it's not about just focusing on something that's in college, because college is just going to give you a certain amount of things. Probably they'll help you get started with things, right? They'll get you introduced to topics and things like that. But end of the day, it's on you as to how you implement that knowledge. So in college right now, most of us focus on the theoretical aspects, but there's obviously a certain sense of practicality that's necessary for all of us to actually excel in a particular field of our choice. So that's something that I realized through this particular professor, and that's kind of something that got me started. And I actually started working on things, and that kind of really got me hooked on to. So yeah, I mean, that was my initial project. So I initially worked on that love calculator, got some feedback from my professor, came back to my room in college, and I reworked a few things. So I made sure that I refined a few things, added a few features to that particular love calculator and all of that. And yeah, I mean, after a point, I knew that it was saturated. There was nothing else that I could do with it. So that was like one of my first projects. Okay. And trust me, the amount of learning that I had in probably that 1 week span was more than what I learned in college over the past 2 years. Trust me, I'm not even kidding. So yeah, I mean, that's how my journey started. And even at this point in time, I wasn't really sure what I was interested in. Okay. Then slowly I started, getting onto slightly deeper projects. Then I started creating an attendance manager of my own and things like that. And one thing that I did was I just to make sure that I understood where I lie with respect to the competition out there. I took part in various competitive coding competitions, and I also took part in various open source coding competitions, like Kharagpur Winter of Code, which is organized by IIT Kharagpur, Open Code, which is organized by IIIT Allahabad, and various other open source competitions. So when I started, so Kharagpur Winter of Code was probably one of my first competitions. And over here, I genuinely had no clue about what I was doing, because trust me, the only knowledge that I went with was probably some basic Python knowledge that I had with respect to building that love calculator. But yeah, I mean, as as a software developer, as a coder, it's something that's really necessary, right? I mean, you need to be able to implement things on the go. understand things, learn things, and implement them on the go, because that's something that'll actually help you get further. So I knew that I had that in me. So that was something that really helped me a lot. So as time progressed, I kept, learning things. I took up open source issues on myself, and I made sure that I solved them. I obviously did take some time, but somehow, I completed these things. I completed the coding competitions, and I was one of the very few people who actually completed it. So that really made a huge difference. I think for me, what really mattered was getting that initial push, right? And for me, that initial push, that initial motivation that I got was through these competitions, and obviously the projects that I was building. But more so, it was inclined towards the aspect of the competitions part, because obviously there are incentives involved, right? So you get a certificate, probably you get a few swags, and I mean, at that point in time, obviously those are pretty big things for me. So yeah, I mean, that's how I got started over there with respect to the competitions aspect, and slowly I ventured into other things. So I started off with basic programming, understood basic data structures and algorithms through various projects. And then eventually I moved on to understanding the concepts of blockchain, because I really felt blockchain was interesting at that point in time. I learned how to implement a blockchain. I built my own blockchain from scratch, understood things in a nutshell. And then eventually I moved on to the more trending topics right now, like machine learning and data science and things like that. And I was lucky enough to actually find my interest in this particular domain, because so to be very honest, I've been someone who's been hooked on to solving problems through a data driven approach. So even when I was in fifth grade or something, I'd actually help my mom trade stocks on the stock market, and I'd suggest her to buy certain stocks purely based on how the stock market was moving. Okay, so that was one of my first instances, but I never really realized it until probably my third year of college. So it took me a while to realize that, okay, fine, data is something that interests me. But then the reason I was able to realize that was because I actually was keen on exploring different things. So yeah, I mean, I got into the field of machine learning and data science and things like that. On a, Over here, I wasn't really focusing on the depth, but I was focusing on the breadth of things initially, because I just wanted to make sure that this is my field of interest. So once I figured out that this was my field of interest, I actually started putting more efforts into it. So all this while I'm exploring things, I was still, applying for internships. I applied for over like 200, 300 internships. And one major problem for me was, although I had a pretty good profile with respect to projects and achievements, I had a pretty low GPA. So the low GPA kind of barred me from, even appearing for interviews in a lot of companies. Um, so yeah, I mean, that kind of hampered my experience growth, and that's one problem that I really thought needed to be addressed. But yeah, that's a story for a later time. But yeah, I mean, that really kind of got to my head. But somehow I still got an internship after a certain point in time. But I really found it difficult for me to get my first break, and I think a lot of us face that problem. So I mean, yeah, if that's something that you're facing, don't that's some problem that you're facing, don't worry about that. I mean, it's all about figuring out your area of interest. Once you do that, it's going to be pretty much sorted, because half the confusion lies over there. So although I didn't get these internships in the beginning, I'd still focus on working on my own project. So I started off with the most basic project out there, which was a Titanic survival prediction project, and slowly I started getting into other projects as well. And then it was around this time that I also thought, that it was around this time that the whole term startup and the whole concept of startups actually started picking up some traction, right? I mean, it started becoming a thing to actually try out, and people started talking about it. And I really didn't understand what the fuss was all about. So I thought, okay, fine, why not actually start something out? And we actually had an idea, which was about creating an open access research platform that was focusing on helping people pursue research in a localized form. So we didn't focus on just English as a language, but we focused on making sure that people could pursue research in almost any language, any regional language in India, of their choice. So it could be Bengali, it could be Marathi, Tamil, Hindi, anything. So we had about 8 languages that we supported. It's a different story. I mean, obviously, the product didn't click off as much as we liked it to, but I mean, it was a start, right? And there were so many things that I learned in this particular process as well. So I actually learned about, I learned about marketing, I learned about how to talk to people, learned about how to convince people, I learned about how to make money from a particular product. And most importantly, I learned how to use data to improve your particular product. So that was one of my first instances where I saw data being used in a real-time environment where you can make an impact through the findings that you have. So this was my start. I mean, this was where I actually felt like, okay, fine, now I actually know what I want to do, because what really interested me was not just data science, but it was data science along with entrepreneurship. So soon after, we actually had to shut down this company, Free Flow, because we weren't going anywhere, we weren't making any money, and people kind of wrote the product off. And it was just right for us to, probably shut the company down. Also, because the co-founders that I started this off with were kind of divergent, so we weren't all on the same page. So we decided to shut it down. But that kind of taught me a lot of things. That kind of made me realize what exactly my interests are. Okay, and after a point, as I mentioned, right? So a lot of us face this problem with the initial push, right? We don't get that initial push. We don't know where our interests lie. So we thought, we, as in me, along with my roommate, we thought, why not actually create a platform that helps people understand and assess what their interests are. So this was the start of Vidya, which is basically, which is basically the startup that I'm currently working on. And this idea has shaped up since then. So we've been working on this for quite some time now. And very honestly, I'm actually happy with what I'm doing, because I know what exactly I want. I know what my interests are, and I'm actually following what my interests are. So this is how I explored different things. I made sure that I found time to explore things. Yes, it's a different story that I had a low grade in college, and apart from that, I also probably didn't really attend college as much, didn't focus a lot on college, which is why my grades were falling down. But end of the day, I was happy that, okay, fine, this is where my interest lies. I had that clarity in myself, and slowly the opportunities also followed. So that was a good thing. So this is basically how I explored my particular interests, how I explored where my interests lie, and that's something that really helped me a great deal. So the reason I'm telling you this story is just because I want you people to understand that exploring can actually have a lot of impact. So now it's a different thing if I would have explored throughout. Even if I was still exploring now, it's fine. I mean, but at some point in time, you need to have that full stop, right? You need to say that, okay, fine, this is where my interest lies. So it's always nice to make sure that you explore. Okay, so that's something that really helped me a lot with respect to finding where my interests lie, and that kind of helped me shape my career path. Okay, so that's basically my story about how I landed up, and right now I'm working as a full-time entrepreneur at Vidya, focusing on Vidya full-time. So, I mean, this is where I lie right now, but I wouldn't be here if I wouldn't have started exploring it probably in my fourth semester of college. So, yeah, I mean, that's my story. And the reason I'm telling you the story will become more clear as we progress towards the end of this particular talk, right? So, yeah, moving on. Sorry, there's some issue with my. Okay, yeah. So, so now let's focus on what the different career options are for people, right? So, as I mentioned, I'm not going to be delving into each and every career opportunity or option out there. I'm just going to focus on a few things just to give you people a glimpse of how to progress ahead and how to understand where your interests lie. So the first of it, I mean, it's probably the most trending thing right now: machine learning, AI, data science. So how do you know that you are interested in this particular field, right? So if you're someone who has an interest towards gathering data, towards taking data and getting some insights out of it, like for example, let's say a particular company's sales is down and you want to understand why the sales went down, you take the data and you don't just go on pure hypothesis. You go through the data and you define your own hypothesis, define your own arguments, and then prove or disprove them. then yeah, I mean, you're probably looking at a field in machine learning, AI, or data science. It's always nice to make sure that you have an appetite for playing with data. So if you enjoy playing with data, if you have a good understanding of data structures and algorithms, if you think that uh, playing with data, plotting graphs, understanding how the data behaves, and understanding and using tons of data, probably terabytes of data at some point in time, is something that interests you, then yes, machine learning, AI, and data science are probably one of the fields that you might be looking at. Also, at the same time, if you're someone who wants to predict things, like for example, let's say you want to predict the sales of a particular company, right? So you have past data and you want to forecast the sales of the future. Then obviously, machine learning or AI, if it can be used over there, because predictions are something that come as a part of these things, right? So if you're someone who is interested to make these predictions, who's interested in looking at the future from a different perspective, right, and having an idea about the future well in advance, and you want to make sure that that creates a high impact, then probably these domains like machine learning or data science or artificial intelligence are your go-to fields. Software development is probably the next thing that I'll be touching upon, because it's one of the most trending things for the past couple of years now, right? Because everyone wants to get into FANG companies. People want to get into Facebook, Apple, Amazon, or Netflix, or Google, right? And the most sought after profiles over there are for software developers. So, how do you understand if you are interested in software development or not? So, for example, this particular thing that I'm using right now is Google Slides, right? So, Google Slides over here is a product of Google, right? Now, Google, obviously, they don't have one or two engineers who just work on this product. They have tons of engineers who work on this product, who work on optimizing this product, who work on making sure that this product works the way it's supposed to, right? So, this is something that's of a high impact as well. It's not like one or two users use this, right? I mean, you have millions of users who use this on a daily basis. So, if you're someone who's looking at building a high impact product, or if you're someone who's interested to build something for the greater good, right? And if you're interested towards coding and all of that, with an understanding of data structures and algorithms, obviously, then software development is your go-to field. So why am I specifically mentioning data structures and algorithms in both like ML, AI, data science field and the software development field? Well, that's because data structures and algorithms help you focus on building an optimized product, right? So, end of the day, you want to make sure that your product is scalable, in the sense your product can be used by tens of thousands of lakhs of people out there, right? And if your product is not scalable, then obviously your website is going to crash, your platform is going to crash. So you need to make sure that your product is scalable to a certain extent. And for that, having some understanding of data structures and algorithms is definitely required, because these things basically form the crux of anything that you're doing with respect to code. Right? End of the day, data structures and algorithms are used to optimize your codes. They're used to optimize what you're doing. They're used to optimize time. They're used to optimize memory, right? And these things are basically money for you, right? If you're looking at a product, time is money, and in fact, memory is also money. So you obviously need to look at optimizing these things to give a better experience to your users as well. So these are a few. Yeah. So that's the reason why data structures and algorithms are uh, genuinely important for any tech field that you're going into. So yeah, I mean, these are two fields that require data structures and algorithms. But apart from that, ML, data science, AI, they obviously require you to have some appetite for uh, adopting a data-driven approach. So it's not just about looking at something and saying that, okay, fine, this might have happened, but then it's looking at data and saying that this must have happened. Okay, so there's that certainty that's involved over there. And software development, on the other hand, is something that you'll probably want to get into if you love building such high impact products like Google Docs or Facebook or Google Slides or whatever it is. Coming back, so the next thing that I'd like to touch upon is marketing. Marketing is something that's usually looked down upon. I'm not sure why, but marketing is actually one of the most interesting fields that I actually see out there, because there's so much that you can do with marketing, right? You can actually influence people through marketing. So, for example, let's say you I mean, you're someone who's interested to probably build share something that's already been built in a creative manner, right? For example, you have a lot of companies that have a social media presence. In this particular social media presence, what happens is that people focus on building their brand's reputation. They make sure that more people are aware about a particular product, right? So over there, it becomes very important to have people that actually are creative enough to come up with initiatives and marketing strategies, right? Because end of the day, your marketing will also directly influence the sales or the growth of your company. The more people that you reach out to, the higher is the probability that your sales will increase, right? So that's something that's really important, and marketing is something that's really looked down upon. But I really feel it's one essential, domain for one essential role in each and every company. Because trust me, without marketing, there's not a lot of things that click out. Again, marketing, you have different types of marketing. So you have traditional marketing, you have digital marketing. So traditional marketing is more like understanding how you can market a solution with respect to traditional approaches, like for example, putting up advertisements on TVs or newspapers, coming up with banners, coming up with certain other marketing initiatives like a hook or something, things like that. So that's the traditional aspect. But then what's booming right now is the digital marketing field. So digital marketing is something where you actually focus on improving your brand's digital awareness, improving your brand's digital footprint, and improving your brand's digital reputation, basically. So again, digital marketing, you have various forms of it. You have content marketing, you have email marketing, um, you have search engine optimization, and you have social media ads, things like that. So it's like a vast field again, digital marketing. So digital marketing is actually one very high paying domain as well right now, because every company almost has an online presence right now, right? And especially since COVID, almost every company out there has gone online. So even if they've just been online offline stores, each of these offline stores almost have gone to an online approach as well, because users are scared to actually come down to a shop and probably buy some things, right? So it's obviously important to have that particular digital footprint as well. And that is where your digital marketers come into play, right? So it's about retargeting. So for example, for example, if you buy a product on Amazon, right? Uh, Before you buy the product, you might actually keep it in your cart, right? And when it's in your cart for a long time, you might see Amazon sending you an email saying, this particular product has been in your cart, we are offering XYZ discount. So that's basically something that falls under the category of email marketing. Okay, so it's about understanding who which particular user is there on your has a product in their cart, and then giving them what they want, right? So this particular marketing domain is definitely one of the most sought after fields, and it's for you if you are someone who thinks of creative ways to actually brand a particular product, or if you're someone who comes up with creative ways to generate traction. If you're someone who's creative in general, this might be a good field for you. So you might want to explore marketing that way. So moving on to the next thing, which is sales and business development. So again, so sales and business development also are looked down upon, and I don't really get the point, because all of us, we focus so much on the technical aspects of things that we don't really focus on the non-tech aspects, right? I mean, it's not that the non-technical aspects are not high paying; they are. If you can make sure that you create that impact, definitely it's going to be high paying. But it's just looked down upon probably because of the grunt work that you have to do. So now who could possibly get into sales and business development, right? So if you're someone who thinks that you can convince anyone to buy anything, right? Then this particular field is definitely for you, because it's an art. It's an art to convince someone to buy something. It's an art to convince someone to just come onto your particular product and see it as well. So if you're someone who can genuinely convince someone to buy something, then this particular field is for you. Because trust me, a lot of these sales jobs and business development jobs, although they have a fixed stipend, you also have certain variables that you'll have to meet, so milestones that you meet. So every time you meet these milestones, you get more incentives. So the more your convincing capabilities, the higher your incentives are going to be. So if you're looking at it from a money perspective, and if you're definitely sure that you can convince people to actually get into something, or buy something, then this field is definitely for you. So that's basically about sales and business development. The next one is UI UX, designing, right? So if you're someone who wants to determine and decide how someone should be using what you build, right, then probably you're you're heading towards the field of a UI UX designer, right? Because you understand what the user wants, and you make sure that the user has the best possible experience out there, right? So for example, again, let's just come back to this particular Google Slides layout, right? So all these buttons over here, all these buttons that you see over here, these are buttons that have been designed for a particular reason, right? Why is file over here? Why not over here, right? The reason is because, I mean, there might be many reasons, but then this is what I like to believe. Generally, what we as people do is we are used to reading and writing from left to right. Okay, and as people, you want to make sure that the most important things for you are available at the shortest time possible, because you don't want to keep searching for things, right? So now the reason why file is here is because this particular file option has multiple sub options over here, which are widely used, and in fact these are probably the most used options out here, right? So yeah, I mean, the reason why you have it here is because these options are used by majority of the people, and this particular company, Google, wants to make sure that people spend less time in searching for a particular option and focus more on building what they want. So that's about, that's just an example. I might be wrong, I might be right, but this is just something that I like to believe. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you notice, like, obviously, as you keep progressing over here, I think in general as well, most of us, we use probably the file option, the edit option, and probably sometimes a view option, and sometimes the insert option. But then as you keep progressing towards the right, the usage of these options keeps decreasing, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, it just supports what I just said right now. So if people just want to make sure that you have things that you use on a regular basis at a first glance. So if you're someone who is interested in deciding this particular thing, who's interested in deciding what is placed where, who's interested in deciding how the user uses your product, if you're interested in deciding and determining how exactly your product should be used, then yes, UI UX designing is your domain to get into. And obviously, you need to make sure that you have some interest for probably designing things, like in the sense of uh, prototyping, or using certain tools and all of that, just to make sure that you have an understanding of things, right? So you need, if you're creative enough to come up with a layout, and also decide, if you're determined enough to decide how someone uses your product, then UI UX designing could be an amazing career for you. So that's about UI UX designing. So next one is product management. So we hear a lot about these product management roles, but what exactly is this particular role? So this particular role is basically a combination of whatever we have discussed so far. So it's a combination of software development, it's a combination of marketing, sales and business development, UI UX designing, everything. Okay. Product managers are those people who make sure that they communicate with all of these teams and make sure that a product is built in the way it's supposed to be built, and at the same time they understand the user's problems in a better manner than anyone else. So if you're someone who's looking at probably a micro entrepreneurial stint, or if you're someone who's looking at let's say having that in-house entrepreneurship experience, like entrepreneurship experience within a company, then this might be your go-to, because product management roles are definitely high paying and the growth is tremendous, right? So the chances of getting promoted are really high, because the more quality work you do, the more higher you're going to go up the ladder. So product management roles generally lead about, like 10 to 15 years down the line, it leads people to a particular executive position as well. Like you also have a really high chance of probably becoming a chief operating officer or the chief executive officer of a company if you're into the domain of product management, because this is where things happen. This is where an idea is conceptualized, and this is where you know the whole idea is implemented, right? And these product managers are responsible for it because they literally liaise with all these teams, from designing to sales to marketing to software development. Everything is being liaised by these teams, by this particular product manager. Sorry. So yeah, if you're someone who understands what people want and give them exactly what they want by liaising with multiple teams while also taking up a leadership role, then yes, product management roles can definitely be an option for you. Now, moving on to the more niche roles out there, right? Obviously, not. I mean, most of us, we probably get into mechanical engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering, manufacturing or anything like that. But most of us, we end up into the IT sector, right? Sometimes it is planned, sometimes it's unplanned. But then most of us, we generally end up in this particular sector. But there are people who are genuinely interested in pursuing things related to their particular domain as well. So if you're someone who's interested, like for example, a mechanical engineer might be interested in building engines, right? Or designing engines from scratch and building high performance engines. Or you might be interested in building a high performance car. Or, if you're an electrical engineer, you might be interested in designing a particular circuit board. Or, you might be interested in optimizing the power efficiency. Uh, and if you're a civil engineer, you might be interested in probably building something like, the Alara Burj Hotel, and things like that. So you have these domain specific things as well. So if you're interested within your particular domain, you again have tons of options out there. And not all these options might necessarily always be high paying, but if you're genuinely interested in this particular domain that you're actually into currently, then you should definitely have that as probably one of your first career options. Because yeah, I mean, I'll come to why we need to figure out why our interests are in just a bit. But yeah, I mean, if you're interested in that particular domain that you're studying, the particular domain you're studying in right now, then definitely, I mean, you should keep that as an open option. And finally, I come on to entrepreneurship, right? Because entrepreneurship is something that a lot of people are slowly getting into. One reason is that people don't really like working under their boss and things like that. But then I don't think that should generally be a reason for you to get into entrepreneurship. If you're getting into entrepreneurship, obviously that is a perk, not having to work under someone, because you are the person who makes sure that everyone else works, right? But that shouldn't necessarily be your motivation to start up or something like that. So if you have identified some problem that you think hasn't been solved yet, then you should definitely get into entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurs are people who think about ideas that could solve a problem not just in the short term but over a long term, right? So if you're someone who sees a problem in a particular domain and you really think that hasn't been solved, then trust me, you would love the whole field of entrepreneurship. Okay, I mean, getting into entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship, again, as I already mentioned in my story, it's a combination of a lot of things, right? Because when you start off, you might not necessarily have a lot of money to hire people. So you probably need to get your hands dirty with almost everything. You might need to get into marketing. You might need to get into sales. You might need to actually build the product yourself. You might obviously have to do some analysis on the data that you get and things like that. So entrepreneurship is literally it's like a combination of everything. It's like this one ball where everything comes together. So yeah, I mean, that's something that you might want to look at if you think there's something that you've identified, some problem that you've identified that hasn't been solved yet. And at the same time, obviously, you need to make sure that you have a certain interest towards leading teams and making sure that the product's vision stays intact. So these are just a few domains that I've touched upon. These are just a few career options that I've touched upon, but there are a lot of other things as well, that I really haven't touched upon. So, for example, you can get into content writing as well. So, content writing, obviously, like I just grouped it as a part of marketing itself, because nowadays a lot of people use content as a way to market their initiatives, their products, and all of that. But yeah, I mean, content writing is again a pretty high-paying job, right? So that's again one thing that I haven't really gone in depth into, and again at the same time I really haven't gone into probably something like a testing role or a cybersecurity role, or things like that. So there are a lot of fields out there that I haven't really covered. It's just that I've covered a few of them because I wanted to give you people a perspective of how you could possibly understand where your interests lie, or just a perspective of different options out there for you people. um, so yeah, I mean, these are just a few options that I had that I wanted to share, right? um, but now moving on, so how did I decide where my interest lies, right? So as I mentioned, for me, one of the most important aspects was finding out, you know uh, exploring, obviously, right? It's about exploring different things. It's about exploring where things lie for you, right? And that's not really simple, to be honest, because finding out where your interest lies can take years for a lot of people, and for some people it might just take a few days. It all depends on how you model your approach, right? How you tackle and understand how you tackle your exploration, right? So it's not about just diving into random aspects, right? So you might have a hunch that, okay, fine, I am interested in software development. So you might get started with that. And slowly you might want to get into other tech aspects just to see if that particular aspect interests you or not. So yeah, I mean, explore. So the reason how I decided was, one very important thing for me was exploring at a very early stage. So, as I mentioned, I started exploring when I was in 2-2, and sometimes I feel, damn, I should have started exploring when I was in my first year itself, because I would have had more time to, probably get to understand a few more fields in depth. But yeah, I mean, somehow I just figured out what my interest was eventually. But one key thing to understand and emphasize on is exploring your different options as early as possible, because that will give you that head start, and that will make sure that you have enough time to narrow down on one particular stream, right? um, and now this exploration is what will help you understand what your interests are, because as and when you keep exploring different things, you tend to understand, what you're interested in and what you're not interested in. So one tip that I usually give people is that when you're looking at exploring something, whenever you feel like you're not interested in a particular field, don't try to push yourself into it. Okay, because if you're not interested in a particular field at that particular moment, then it's not, I mean, it's highly unlikely that you might be interested in that field 10 years down the line, right? So it's also about motivation. It's about understanding what will keep you motivated. That's something that really help you find what your interests are, where your interest lies. So make sure that you have a clear understanding of things, and you don't take things really deep if you're not interested in something. So if you feel that you're not interested in a particular domain, switch to the next one. See, explore it, understand if you're interested there. If you are, stick with that, go deeper. But after a point, if you feel that you're not interested in that, move on to the next one. Okay, but as I mentioned, there needs to be a full stop somewhere. Okay, so just make sure that this particular full stop that you have is not coming up at a very late stage, because if it comes really late, then obviously it's going to be a really difficult thing for you to understand how to proceed, right? Because age is also something that people take into consideration nowadays. Like, people want to make sure that you've made best use of your time. And if you're just exploring and don't really have enough experience in the domain that you're aiming to get into, that's going to be a huge problem. So make sure that your exploration phase does not go for a very long time. Keep it as short as possible, but it should be deep impacting as well for you. So it differs for everyone. For me, it was different. It can be different for you as well. And as I mentioned, this is so what I'm sharing is through my experiences, through what I've done, and through the research that I've conducted with people and all of that. So it's going to be different for different people, and obviously, there's no one else who can understand yourself better than you. So make sure that you understand how much you want to explore and until when you want to explore. Okay, and make sure that you have a clear path of exploration as well. Don't just go into very diverse fields, in the beginning itself. Go in a step-by-step manner, and I'm pretty sure you'll inch closer towards your area of interest. Um, and now, the most important aspect when it comes to figuring out what is your field of interest, right? I think one important aspect over there, in fact, one of the most important aspects there is figuring out what your goals are. So, what do I mean by that? So, a lot of people focus on money being a driving factor for them. Some people focus on success being a driving factor for them. Some people focus on just, their passion, right? So, and some people might focus on all of these, right? The thing is that all these three things, being rich, having a successful career, and following your passion, these three things need not necessarily be correlated each and every time. Sometimes, yes, being rich might also mean that you have a successful career and you're also following your passion, but it need not always mean that. So, try to prioritize what exactly you want. Okay. This is something that will really help you understand where you want to get into. Because, for example, if you're interested in money, right? Obviously, data science and AI, machine learning, all these things are really high paying jobs right now. So you might want to look at a career over there. But again, so, if even if that's not your interest and you're willing to take that chance over there, then sure, go ahead with it. But then if you're looking at following your interest, even if it means taking a pay cut or, working for a lesser salary, then that's definitely something you should be doing. So figure out what exactly you want to do. Do you want to be rich? Do you want to follow your passion, or do you want to have a successful career, or is it literally everything above? So yeah, that's basically how you could possibly figure out your choice as well. And coming to myself, for me, what happened was, since I started exploring early, I've I not really early, but yeah, considerably early. I kind of figured out my interest by the time I was in third year. So it took me like about 6 to 8 months to figure out what my interest was. And since then, I've been working towards that. And for me, obviously, I mean, for me, I think it's all of these things that matter, all these things: being rich, having a successful career, and also following my passion, which is kind of why I've actually got into the whole entrepreneurship sector, right? Obviously, it's a high risk, high reward sector. So if I mean, if I actually, if my if my startup actually clicks, I might actually end up satisfying all these three goals. But if it doesn't, I might actually not satisfy even one of these goals, or probably I am, because I'm following my passion, right? So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So it depends on what you want to do. So make sure that you understand exactly what your goals are, because this will help you shape your career and figure out what your interests are. So that's basically how I figured out as well. So as I mentioned, I basically I basically started exploring at a very early stage, right? I got into various fields, like literally. So I started off with basic things like marketing and growth hacking and all of that, and then slowly went into software development and slowly went into data science. The first internship that I did was related to growth hacking. So what exactly is growth hacking? So growth hacking is more like coming up with initiatives that can improve your sales in an online approach, or in an offline approach as well. So I was more, so this particular growth hacking role for me, at least in this particular organization, was more inclined towards a data analytics approach. Okay, so I was focusing more on marketing and data analysis at the same time. And then that kind of got me hooked onto the whole tech aspect, because there was so much grunt work. I literally had to procure data in a manual manner. Okay, and I didn't really like that, so I wanted to automate things, and that's slowly how I got into software development. And then after a point, I realized that okay, fine, my interest actually lied in understanding data and working with data. And also I developed certain skills through software development that actually helped me in building a career in data science. So I went into data science and things like that. But yeah, the idea here is that I've done multiple internships in all these fields as well, and having that industry experience actually helps you understand whether this particular thing is for you or not. Because end of the day, learning something is different from actually doing something, right? So yeah, I mean, I think doing these internships really helped me a lot. But it was a huge task for me to find these internships, especially because of my grade. So I really had to apply to certain lesser known organizations and all of that. And one very important thing that I kind of take pride in is probably exploring beyond my college curriculum. So I never really focused just on my college curriculum. I didn't focus just on the theoretical aspects of what's being taught in college, but I had the courage of actually exploring beyond my curriculum. So in our college, machine learning was being taught in my sixth semester, But I kind of knew what machine learning was and how to implement machine learning models and all of that in my fourth semester itself, fourth and fifth, in between that. So yeah, I mean, I was very so for me, what really pushed me, what really helped me learn a lot was self-learning. So I learned much more through self-learning than what I learned through college. But that's something that worked for me. So it might be different for you as well, or it might be the same for you, but it all depends. So it all depends on you as a person. So figure out what works for you the best. And finally, I worked on tons of projects. So no matter what field I got into, before writing a particular field off, I made sure that I did a project or two first. Okay, even if it meant if it was a really basic project, I made sure that I did something. Obviously, a lot of times what happens is that we don't really get an understanding of what projects we should be doing, or how we should be getting started in a particular domain. For me, what really worked out was I kind of had this motivation to solve problems that people around me faced and problems that I personally faced as well. So I always had a knack of figuring out those problems and coming up with solutions for those problems. So that's something that really helped for me, and those are basically what I did my projects on. So I figured out a particular problem in a particular domain. I figured out a problem, and then I'd actually start working on implementing it. So I think having that drive to implement something really will help you a lot, and that is where projects come into picture as well. So yeah, I mean, before writing of a particular field, make sure that you understand you understand the field at least in a certain aspect. Okay, so do a project or two and figure out before writing of a particular field. So this is how I figured things out for myself in detail. So that's basically about it. And now, um, finally, as you know, I chose to work as a full-time entrepreneur, and I'm working on something called Vidya. And you might be wondering what Vidya is, right? So as I mentioned, a lot of us face that initial push problem, right? So we might have questions like, how do I get started with a particular domain? What projects do I do to get ahead in that particular domain? How can I build my profile? You might have a low grade in college, but and you might find it really tough to bag an internship or a job, right? And you at the same time, you might really want to explore different fields, and that is the purpose with which Vidya was actually built. So Vidya is basically a platform where we aim to give our users and learners an experience which they will never forget. So what we do is, uh, learners on our platform, they come onto our platform and they're able to solve real-time industrial tasks even without actually having to do an internship or a job. So these tasks that we get from companies are basically I mean, these tasks that we get are basically from companies. So they are real-time projects. Some of them are from companies, some of them are from some open source organizations as well. And yeah, we put them on our platform. And the best part about our platform is we don't focus on necessarily a video based approach. So we focus more on making sure that people learn in a content based manner, but also in a gamified approach. So we try to implement something like a COD or a PUBG through a learning, okay, while giving you a learning experience. So the main focus of Vidya is on learning by doing. That is what we take pride in, and that is something that has really helped us get a long way as well. Uh, and apart from that, obviously, getting to work on real-time industrial tasks even without actually having to do an internship or a job is an incentive, right? Because end of the day, you're actually tuning yourself with respect to the industry. And the best part over here is anyone can do anything of their choice. So no one has a particular. I mean, we don't really disbar or bar anyone from doing or getting into a particular domain. So you're free to explore whatever you want. And yeah, it's a self-paced thing. So you can work on anything at any point in time, and you can work on any field of your choice. Sorry. So yeah, that's basically what Vidya is. But what is unique about us is, number one, as I mentioned, we focus on gamification. Just to make learning more fun and interesting. Because this gamification is something that will keep you occupied. It'll make sure that you are on par with what is being taught with respect to the content. And what we do is we don't just so in case you're getting into a particular field right now, we don't just tell you to focus on the field directly. So we make sure that you go on it in a step-by-step approach. So that's something that we really take pride in through our gamification process. At the same time, certain students can also earn while learning by mentoring other students as well. And the best part is that you get that internship experience that you want without actually having to do one, right? I mean, how many of us are actually privileged to get that? Because end of the day, internships are very minimal, right? There are very few jobs, there are very few internships out there, and a lot of people who are looking for these internships and jobs. So there's a clear disparity over here in terms of numbers. So we are trying to cover, even if 20% of the students get the internship, we're trying to build a platform for the remaining 80% of the students, where you don't really have to apply for an internship per se, but you get that internship experience that you want by just solving things on our platform, by learning things on the go as well. And also, we make sure that the solutions that you come up with are being reviewed by your peers and all of that. This is more of a future feature that we're looking at, but yeah, I mean, this is going to be there on our platform as well. So the best part is that, when you look at other solutions, you also look at different perspectives. So you look at different ways to solve the same problem, right? So it just becomes more interesting. So these are things that really make us unique. And yeah, I mean, now the most important question: has this particular career option worked out for me? Because I have chosen entrepreneurship as a full-time career option right now. Has it worked out for me? So honestly, I really don't know yet, because it's all a matter of time, right? It's not every company is going to be like a white hat junior or a Facebook, where you go from 0 to 1 in a span of 1 year, and your company's valuation goes to millions and millions of dollars. So yeah, I mean, I still don't know. I mean, because it's just the start. It's just our beginning days right now. We've got the product live. We've seen some good enough traction as well over the past couple of days. So we are hopeful that this should work out. But the most important aspect is that this really gives me the satisfaction of working on something. So I really feel content when I'm actually working on this, and this keeps me happy. So that's something that really matters. And yeah, I mean, we've had our share of ups and downs, but who cares as long as I'm happy doing what I'm doing, right? So yeah, entrepreneurship, yes, with respect to happiness, it has, but with respect to getting rich, I'm not sure yet. So let's see how that goes. So this is about it from my end. Thank you so much for listening to me thus far, and I'll be more than happy to take any questions from here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we have a lot of questions too, and I think we have gone out of time too. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
it's already six, but it's okay. Let's get started with questions. So first is Computer Man has asked how to find your passion. So let me elaborate it. So recently I heard a story from my junior, like not a story, he was telling. So you told like you explore technology. So even he was exploring technology. So first he explored the web development, then he explored Android app, and then he explored. So he's telling like I like all the three.
right,
So how can he get? So what is happening here? Exploring is bringing in confusion in minds of some people.
right.
So he's telling I'm liking all the three. Like how can I go forward with which one I can go with like that? So something like that.
Right. So, okay. So, first of all, it's fine to find passion in multiple things, right? I mean, if you're interested in multiple fields, in fact, you're giving yourself um, a lot of options. So, you can actually apply for various jobs in all these three fields. You never know which field you might get into, right? So, you're keeping your options open while you know that you're interested in these things. So that's fine. I mean, it's fine. It's fine to be confused to a certain extent, as long as they're pretty much on the same lines. Because now coming to web development, or full the back end development part, the front end development part, or whatever it is, all of them are pretty much on the same lines. Coming to Android as well, all of them are pretty much on the same line. So it's fine to actually have things on the same lines, I feel so. But again, having very different things, like for example, you're interested in data science and you're interested in marketing, then finding that common ground might be difficult. So yeah, I mean, it is fine. Yes, exploration definitely does cause some confusion in the minds of people, but if you're interested in multiple things on similar lines, it's always easier to look at getting a job or something. So you can always just look at applying to jobs in all these fields and see what clicks for you, because end of the day, if you're interested in all three, you'll be happy doing all these three. And coming to more specifically how to find your passion, how to find your passion, that's a very I would say philosophical question. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to finding your passion, I think it's all about figuring out what you're interested in. Like for example, explore things. Right now, you'll never get to know what you're interested in until you actually get into doing something. So for example, I never really thought I would get into entrepreneurship until I actually, got until I actually explored it, right? So it's all about finding out where your interest lies by exploring things. So just make sure that you get out of that college curriculum, because trust me, within college curriculum it's not always possible for everyone to explore, and it's not possible for everyone to find passion. So I was lucky enough to find my interest. So I knew that my interest lied in CS, uh, and somehow I landed up in the CS domain as well in college. But it's not necessary that everyone is going to benefit from college with respect to finding passion. So get out of your college curriculum, explore things, and understand things. So that will really help you a lot in finding your passion.
Okay, cool. We have some more questions to go ahead. So it's a question from Saurav. Should we focus on the maths of machine learning initially in our career, or understanding the concepts and working of available existing frameworks like scikit-learn? Is it good enough? So he's asking whether to focus on the maths or whether to focus on the concepts and frameworks.
Right. So
Because I feel like if you start learning maths, it takes a lot of time. So in scikit-learn, you just import that linear regression, you just xy the value, you'll get the answer, right?
true, true. That's very true. So yeah, I mean, to answer Saurav's question, I think when you're starting off, it's always better to start off just with the implementation aspect, because you're still not sure if you're interested in that domain, right? So what's the point of getting deep into a particular domain until and unless you're not sure if that's the domain you want to get into? So I'll tell you my experience. Okay, so so as I mentioned, I got into the field of machine learning, data science, and all about what one and a half years back now, and I got into the mathematical aspect just about 3-4 months back. That's how much time I took to figure out whether I really need to get into the mathematical aspects or not. I mean, yes, I did have certain understanding of the basic math, but then when it goes into the deeper aspects of understanding each and every, like equation with respect to the back propagation part in the neural networks, or trying to understand each and everything with respect to the statistical aspects and all of that, take some time. Don't just dive directly into it, because first you need to make sure that you understand these things on a surface level. There's no point going in depth if you're not understanding things on the surface. So using these frameworks and things like that is going to help you understand things on a surface level before diving deep into the math. So I would suggest, if you're just getting started with machine learning or data science or AI itself, deep learning and all of that, first make sure that you understand the implementation. And if you're actually interested in that, then get deeper into the mathematical aspects. That'll really help you a lot. That'll help you in building a career. So if you're looking at building a career in that particular field, sure, you must get into the mathematical aspects. Sure.
Okay, cool. And we have a question from Minitech7. So he's
Mhm.
asking, I don't like coding. What are the jobs available apart from coding? I think you have covered everything, such as UI, UX, sales, and marketing, and all, right?
Exactly. So yeah, you can obviously get into marketing. You have sales, you have business development, you have content writing. In fact, Mini Tech 7, it looks like a YouTube blog to me, a YouTube channel to me. So you might as well just become a full-time YouTuber, right?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of
So I think there's some relation between the last question. So how can a student with engineering degree interested in marketing can get a job,
right.
and how to build a portfolio or resume? So even I see there are a lot of people who studied BE and a Bachelor of Engineering, and without an MBA, they are like leading the heads of marketing at big firms, unicorns, etc. But even now they don't have a business degree basically. So how
Right.
do they go with that, and how can a B guy go with that?
Right. Okay. So thing is that now when it comes to marketing and business development, right, you have so many opportunities out there, because yeah, I mean, like, almost every company out there is looking at hiring campus ambassadors. They're looking at hiring certain marketing interns and all of that, and they're willing to take that initial chance with people who are just getting started off with the domain. So I'd suggest you to apply for as many opportunities as possible. Um, and especially on platforms like Internshala, there's this one question which asks you, why do you need to get this internship, right? So over there clearly mention that your interest lies over there. So make sure that you convey your interest, because if a company sees that you're interested in a particular domain, they'll be happy to give you a chance. I mean, obviously, not the bigger companies. Like if you're looking at a marketing role or a sales role at Google or something, then you obviously need to have some experience. But looking at startups and all of that, definitely, I mean, they would be happy to give you a chance if you're just interested in that particular domain. So it's not a huge issue to actually you know uh, transition into a particular field. One example that I would give is Web of India. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of him, but
I know
he's
him.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he's the person on LinkedIn. So he's done his bachelor's in computer science from one of the engineering colleges in Andhra or something. But now he's into growth hacking. He's worked at Uber, he's worked at Klook, and now he's working on something of his own. So I mean, it's not a huge. It's not. I mean, if you understand that there is something that you're interested in, just make sure that you start applying for opportunities over there, and that in itself, once you start getting an opportunity or two, that in itself will start building your portfolio or your resume. And obviously, I mean, you can still work on certain certain aspects like certain projects, like probably just take out 500 rupees from your own pocket and put it into Instagram ads to market your own YouTube channel or something. Or you could just open your own YouTube channel. That's also marketing, right? I mean, putting your thoughts forward. Or you can probably create a marketing YouTube channel itself that focuses on you spreading knowledge about marketing. That could be a project in itself. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So next question, I think it would be a favorite question for you. How to build a data science resume?
Okay, so for me, what really clicked was yeah, I mean, I think my story is kind of twisted around personal experiences and self-learning and college-based things as well. So I have a so coming to a resume in data science, I think what's really important is having that experience. Like you need to make sure that you have that internship experience, especially as a fresher getting into data science. You need to make sure that you have enough internship experience that speaks for itself, right? Because companies are usually very skeptical about giving opportunities to first timers. Okay, so you need to make sure that you have some experience in the field of data science, so make sure that you apply for opportunities. But apart from that, one very very important aspect is focusing on research. So for me, what really clicked was I've published like about two research papers, and I have one patent as well. And all this was done through college, through my final year projects, through my third year projects, and all of that. So I made sure that the projects that I worked on when in college was focused on the research perspective, while the personal projects that I worked on were more like a product thing that could be used by people. So definitely, research is something that you should be looking at, because if you have a paper or two, trust me, it's not going to just help you with respect to building a profile for a job, but it'll also help you with respect to getting a good seat at a good college for masters abroad as well. So focus on your research experiences, focus on your internship experiences, but then all of this is possible only if you have certain projects that you've worked on. So make sure that you have just pick up something that's different. Okay, don't go for the same problem. Like for example, I see a lot of people sending me resumes where they mention that they have Titanic machine learning survival prediction as a project. Trust me, looking at that, I know that I wouldn't want to have you on my company, because that's one of the most basic projects, right? And that's something that everyone does. We want to see how you are different from the others. So focus on something that's unique. Focus on your own problem statement, and that will really help you with respect to building your profile.
Okay, cool. And here's a question from me. What
Okay.
do consultants or consultancy companies do? So we see a lot of big consultancy companies like Deloitte, or there are many. Like, what do they do? And like, even they pay high for people. And we have many people who have the role of consultant, like technical consultant, business consultant. So, what the difference between a normal guide and a consultant?
So consultants are basically people who are literally into everything. Okay. So consultancy. So for example, Deloitte itself. Okay. Deloitte. So let's assume that uh, a company like KFC. Okay. KFC is looking at implementing a new technology within its thing, wherein they're looking at a touchless ordering system, right? So now these
Okay.
consultancies help these companies devise a strategy, devise a plan, and devise a methodology to adopt to make sure that that particular idea comes to fruition, right?
Okay.
So that is where these things actually come into play. So consultants are basically people who help you build something, who help you with research. They're literally into everything, to be honest. Like we have this, so we Vidya itself, we are tied up with one of the consulting groups, and they literally help us with everything from formulating our business model to helping us build our pitch decks to helping us build our marketing strategies, our go to market strategies, and all of that. So we actually take advice from them. So they're more like advisors to you, who help you, who show you the right path, and who also help you with the implementation if paid money. So yeah.
Okay. So next, it's from Aru. Your story on first is really made sense to me as I'm also nearing fourth sem and still finding my area of interest. Sir, what things we should do when we start a startup, and is there things we should not do? So basically, he's asking, being in college, if I want to start my startup, so what are the things I should do and what are the things I should not do?
Okay, so I can't tell you what you shouldn't be doing, because trust me, I think when you focus on a startup, you should be doing everything that you feel is right, and then automatically you know that something isn't right when it doesn't work out. So like figure out on what you think will actually help you with respect to getting more traction, for example. So for example, um, okay, so I'll just give you an example that we had at Vidya. Okay, so we had this program called the integrated internship program. Okay, and it kind of worked out pretty well for us in the beginning, but after a point our things started going down, so the traction on our platform started decreasing, and we hardly had like about 600, 700 users. And then we came up with more initiatives, where we actually understood that, okay, fine, like this thing is something that actually helps us, so we started formulating initiatives on these lines. So this really helped us with respect to building that initial traction as well. And another example is with respect to Facebook ads itself. Like, so we weren't sure how to actually get people to take up our initiatives. Okay, so first we adopted Facebook ads. We spent like almost 300 rupees a day, but we hardly got any conversions. So we knew that that wasn't working for us, but we wouldn't have known that it wasn't working for us unless and until we tried it. And then after that, on the contrary, we tied up with certain groups on LinkedIn, and they put up certain opportunities and things available for people, and that gave us a tremendous spike in the traction. And we spent much lesser as compared to these ads on Instagram and social media platforms. Thing is that you'll never know what you shouldn't be doing unless you do it. So do everything that you think is right, and then figure out what you shouldn't be doing.
Cool. So next we have a question from Kannan.
Right.
I know the theory concepts of technology, like how the reinforcement learning works, but when it comes to coding part, I get stuck. What kind of jobs are available for like this kind of people?
Okay, so Kannan, yeah. So the thing is that it's so when you're getting into machine learning and all of that, it's definitely advisable to have some coding background as well, because end of the day, as a machine learning engineer, most of the jobs out there are for machine learning engineers, right? So it's not just about coming up with an algorithm, but it's also about the implementation aspect. So I mean, if you're actually facing trouble over there, I'd suggest you to get more familiar with coding. Okay, because trust me, if you know the concepts of ML and if you know the concepts of reinforcement learning and things like that, trust me, it's amazing. Okay, but then I think your focus should also get into the coding aspect a little bit, because otherwise it'll become a little difficult for you to actually look at a job in these domains. But otherwise, you can always look at so you have companies that hire algorithmists. Okay, algorithmists and people who get into probably you can just become a look at a career as an algorithmist, or you can look at a career as an analyst or something like that, right? So you can actually help people devise algorithms. You can help people understand how to come up with things, and you need not necessarily get involved with the tech part in there. So that's just my opinion, though. So it depends on you how you go about it. But I personally suggest you to get your hands dirty with coding. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think we have come to the end of the questions, and I would like to give. I have put the link of Vidya in the comments, and if you like, you can visit, and it's completely free too. Uh, Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot, and it was really informative session. Like many people liked it and even got their doubts clear.
I'm glad. I'm glad I could help. In fact, thank you people for actually attending the session. It really meant a lot. And yeah, I mean, thank you actually for inviting me to have this session. Really means a lot as well.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys, and happy that everyone attended even during Sundays.
Oh yeah.
And even to you, Rahul. Today is Sunday. I think today also, like we had a webinar. But okay, we learned a lot from you, like entrepreneurship and what are the different career opportunities to go with. So thanks, audience, and thanks, Rahul, and thanks, BSc. So bye, guys. Yeah, bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye everyone. Have a good day.